want to thank Candy and Andy for the desserts. And we also want to express our deep gratitude for Pastors Martha and Mark, who were very supportive of our reconciling ministries here at Claremont United Methodist Church. And we're very grateful. I'd like to begin by just sharing a prayer and a paragraph out of this book, People of a Compassionate God. This is a book that was written a number of years ago. Mary Elizabeth Moore did a case study on how this church became a reconciling congregation. And I want to just read one paragraph from her case study, and then you might want to take a look at the book another time. It's called People of a Compassionate God, Creating Welcoming Congregations. And there are 5 case studies in this book. This church, Epworth United Methodist Church in Chicago, which I wrote, and 3 other churches, large churches, small churches, what we learned about what we should do and the mistakes we made in that process. This is a prayer that this church prayed often in the 1990s. So pray with me. We don't listen to people, Lord, at least not most of the time. Instead of true dialogue, we carry on parallel monologues. I talk, my friend talks. Remind us, Lord God, that you are trying to reach us both. In the miracle of dialogue, teach us to listen, Lord, and in listening, to hear you. Amen. Amen. Here's the paragraph that Mary Elizabeth wrote about as she opened this chapter. The prayer opening this chapter, that's the one I just read, was frequently printed and spoken in Claremont United Methodist Church during the early 1990s as people wrestled with their decisions. The prayer expressed a yearning that people would listen well to one another. Earlier, the Claremont Church had spent 2 years in deciding to be a sanctuary church. They would spend 10 or more years in deciding to be a reconciling congregation. This was a congregation that yearned for harmony, but knew the anguish of families leaving. Even the loss of 3 families during the sanctuary decision signaled hurt. This was also a congregation committed to do justice and love kindness for all people. A tension between the pull toward inner harmony and the urgency of prophetic witness and outreaching kindness marked the tensions in the congregation during these decision-making years, 24 years ago. And we're so grateful for the congregation sticking with it for 10 years to bring as many people along as they could as they made this decision to be prophetically reconciling. We're so pleased to have Sue and Julie with us. It's been a real joy for Dwight and me to, we see each other on Facebook and talk once in a while, but to be together and to just be able to catch up has been a wonderful gift. And both Sue and Julie are open to receiving questions, but I think Sue wants to speak for a few minutes first.
Okay.
And when she gets here with her food. I also, while she's getting ready, want to say the bouquet, the patio pots are $15 a piece. You could pay Dean, he bought them. If you'd like to take one, if they have a sold sign on it, leave it for the person who paid for it. And if you want to take some take-home food with you as you go, that would be fine as well. We're so grateful for your presence here on this important day. Okay, Sue.
It's been really lovely to be here. Some people have asked me some really great questions already since the worship service, and I so appreciate it because they're a little more probing and what about this and you said that. And, that's the kind of thing that gives me hope, actually, so I appreciate it. When I was a high school teacher, I taught a lot of Algebra 1, a lot of Algebra 2, a lot of trigonometry, geometry, and some calculus. And I don't know if there's any math people here. Thank you. Because for seminary people like this, they get really nervous about this. And then the good part is they laugh at the jokes more because they're nervous. But calculus is different than algebra. Algebra, you have your one variable, and maybe by the end of the year you put a second power on it, or an x and a y, or something like that, real simple. In Algebra 2 you get a little more, and trig's pretty precise. But in calculus, there's lots of variables, and they don't even stay the same for the whole problem. They change. You're looking for the maximums and the minimums. You're looking for the optimums. It's not like, what is x? It's like, when would x be its very best? And so, as I've done this reconciling work for how many years? I first started reconciling when I was at seminary in 1991, probably. I have felt many times when I go to do the work that there's a whole lot of people just want to stay at the Algebra 1 level and make us do the same thing over and over and over again. And so something you just said when you were reading from the book, it was like, what were our mistakes? And what could we do differently next time? And so there's people that want to learn from our mistakes and then go farther, and that's what I'm interested in. And then there's people who want to write another book of telling our stories. Well, wait a minute, I'm not against that. Here's a book, I brought one. Oh, I think I did. I thought I had one, but anyways, I have a book of stories from Nebraska that they did a long time ago. I have a book of stories from Bethany United Methodist Church where Karen Oliveto was the pastor all those years ago. Telling the stories is why we're as far as we are today. Telling the stories is the great, wonderful grassroots foundational work that we've done. And every time a new church starts out on this, we're going to hear the stories. That's the Algebra 1. I taught Algebra 1 every year. So when I start to complain about teaching Algebra 1 to calculus students, it's two different things. I'm committed to Algebra 1, and I can tell the stories. It's not a put down of Algebra 1. But at general conference level, when Reconciling comes, and Love Prevails comes, and Love Your Neighbor Coalition comes, and we're trying to deal with the intersections of oppressions and all the different things, now we got a lot more variables, and they're starting to move and shift, and we need people who are willing to do that. And sometimes the people self-identified as allies want to pull us back and slow us down. Sometimes they want to say, well, wait a minute, can't you just tell your story 27,000 more times? Well, my story is fascinating, and I actually love telling it, and I got a lot of chapters, but not at that level, not when I'm at the Judicial Council, not when I'm at the General Conference. So when you hear me saying things like how frustrating that is, I love my Algebra 1 classes. We did great. It's time for calculus. So Claremont United Methodist Church is a group that could help lead others to go and do bigger, deeper things. Or say, well, what about that? So the Judicial Council happened a couple of weeks ago, and I wrote on somebody's face, oh, I know what. There's over 100 clergy came out very, very publicly before General Conference last year. Over 100. And it's been kind of hard on Facebook for the last couple weeks, because if you've done General Conferences, these are the memories of the last how many years. So on Facebook, they'll say, oh, you have a memory from last year. And all these memories are popping up from last year's General Conference, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. And these memories are coming up of all the things that we've tried to do. And 100 clergy came out last year. And they have a Facebook group that's closed. And on that group, after the Judicial Council ruling, so to speak, someone posted it up, and there's a lot of heartache about it. But I just wrote on the Facebook, wow, that's a lot of words. It was 19 pages of gobbledygook. It was crazy. It was nutty. And they're trying to parse the words apart. And any of you that have been in this for the length of time, and I did learn there's quite a few people here that were here 24 years ago, so that was kind of nice. I didn't know there'd be so many. The time for parsing each one of these words and doing all of that wordplay, and it's dishonest. It's not right, and we shouldn't be doing it anymore. The Judicial Council, they have a job to stick to what the law is. Well, the Judicial Council's messed that up before, and I think they messed it up again. We're in the civil government, being people of law and the democracy. That's a different thing than being Christians and dealing with the law within us. And they're talking about, this is the law. This is what we have to do. 19 pages? I don't think it was very clear. I don't think it is the law. And I want to critique if we're people of the law at all. The benediction I often do when I'm places comes from Paul, who wrote, "You are a letter of Christ." You are a letter of Christ, and your Bible is your name, written not with tablets of stone. You know what the tablets of stone are? The law. Moses brought them down, written not with tablets of stone, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. You are people of Christ, written not with a letter of Christ, written not with ink, written with the Spirit of the living God, the Spirit of the living God. So, so the Judicial Council needs to figure out what its role is in this body of Christ, this portion of the body of Christ that we call United Methodism. They've done activist things before. They did some activist things in that. And I think a lot about the Judicial Council. That's our judicial branch. Our executive branch is the Council of Bishops. I'm even more fed up with them. The Council of Bishops has known for a very long time, as a group, and almost every one of the individuals, that this stance against gay people in the law book is wrong. I've had bishops coming up to me since the 1990s, and that's why we had so much hope in the 90s. There was real hope. We were doing the education, we were doing the Algebra 1, because that's foundational, we needed to do that. We were making a witness. My friends in seminary who were gay and lesbian and not called to be out, I was just out the whole time, but they hadn't had that part clarified yet, or that wasn't part of their call yet. When they were invited into the closet, like just don't tell anybody. I heard that 1,000 times, just don't tell anybody. And we thought it was temporary. When we invited people into the closet in the 90s, we were on a trajectory that what they were really saying was, bishops were saying this, professors were saying this, we're going to get this fixed. We're on the path. The Denver 15 have spoken. That's going to grow. So since you're on a 6-year process, don't derail your process. Stay on your process, and we're going to get this fixed. And there was great hope. The wisdom of Reconciling World was, at the time of the 96 and the 2000 General Conference, that there are Methodists of good faith who believe that homosexuality, the practice of homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teaching. And I believe at that time that might have been a true statement. I'm hedging it, but maybe that was true. There are other Methodists, equal good faith, and this, that they don't abide by that. They know that that's not true. So can we at least admit at the General Conference to agree to disagree? Agree that we disagree. And we, as a denomination, did not have enough integrity in 1992 or 6 or 2000. We didn't have, as a body of Christ, to say, we disagree. We didn't even have that much integrity. So in the year 2000, there were arrests. I was from Western Pennsylvania at the time. I had left Garrett. Julie and I had gone home. We were trying to make things better in a harsh annual conference because we care about the LGBT people there, and we still do. We couldn't find a church hardly to go to on Sundays, and we started a house church called Coda. They wanted to be called. We had a thing about finding a name. Have you ever been on the committee to find a name of your group? And all these different names, and the chief cornerstone, the one that's been rejected will become the chief cornerstone. Anyway, we had all these names. Coda is actually an acronym. It's BYKOTA. Some good old poetic King James going on here. Be ye kind one to another. Ephesians 4:32. They said they just wanted that word kind in their name. These were people that had no place to go to church of any denomination in the 90s, in the late 90s. No, you couldn't just go to the UCC church. They weren't any better. You couldn't just go here or there. People drove a long distance to get to the Coda group. Some people liked it because it just said bye at the beginning. Like, bye always gets left out. So be ye kind one to another. And we led that house church for the 4 years we were back there. And we came to the general conference. I was a lay person. I had thought at one time the 2000 general conference would be my last one. Because, I'm in Western Pennsylvania. I'm not going to be ordained. I did that. It was fun. And now I'll get a job and earn a living. And but as God loves me so much, and I pray for clarity, they announced the next general conference was going to be in Pittsburgh. I was like, no, I'm not missing general conference in Western Pennsylvania. I'm not going to miss that. So we're at Cleveland. They announced it before Cleveland came, but I went to Cleveland. That was the greatest witness ever. We did everything. Was anybody at Cleveland? Who was at Cleveland? It was amazing. It was amazing. We everything you could think of. We hugged the convention center. On Saturday afternoon, we went all around the convention center. We had a rainbow ribbon. Someone had stepped it off. And all the way around the convention center, I see a couple nods. They had enough rainbow ribbon that it was connected the whole way, in case we didn't have enough people to hold hands around the convention center. And so at least the ribbon would go. And for years when I traveled with Reconciling Ministries, people would show me they still had that piece of ribbon. And while we did that, somehow we coordinated it to sing some Jesus Loves You and songs from our youth to that convention center. And we tried and tried, and they couldn't even say, well, some Methodists in good faith believe this, some Methodists in good faith believe this. They wouldn't allow it. So we had a big protest. And on Wednesday of the second week, over 250 people were arrested outside with the Soul Force group. And we had more things to vote with. That was before the votes. Then the votes were Thursday morning. And Julie had been there the whole first week volunteering. And I said, don't worry, I won't be arrested. God does not want me to be arrested. I'm so tired of getting beat up already. I know what it is to be isolated in Western Pennsylvania. I will not. That's the literal last thing I said to Julie when they were driving away on Sunday after the first week. And then Thursday night and Wednesday into Thursday morning, I called Julie up at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, I think I'm going to speak to the whole general conference. And the clarity is, well, if they've chosen you to be the spokesperson, you can't leave when they're being arrested. So now I'm going to be arrested at the Cleveland General Conference. And what I had said at the meeting late the night before was, I didn't even participate because I was too afraid to be arrested. I just was thankful for people who were going to do it. 250 had already been arrested that day. It was late, and at some point in time, someone, and they didn't want the same people repeating themselves over and over, so you weren't supposed to talk all the time. And I hadn't said anything all night, and it was late now. And someone said, okay, we have our plan. And someone raised their hand, and they were afraid of this, and they said, okay, well, we have to be careful. We don't want to break covenant with the bishops. I was furious. We don't want to break covenant with the bishops. And I looked around the room and I said, we're all a bunch of good liberals in this room. There is an abusive relationship going on in this church. And the people being abused are not the ones that broke the covenant. It is impossible for us to break covenant with the Council of Bishops because they've broken covenant with us. It's the abuser that broke the covenant. Every clergy person that ever took a vow to be in ministry to all people and then doesn't look out for us has broken their vow. And I didn't want to leave lay people off the hook, so I was kind of scrambling, but we'd already been put out of a few churches by then, so I'm like, every congregation that ever put a sign out front that said all are welcome or put it in the bulletin and treated us the way Julie and I have been treated, they have broken their vow. We cannot break covenant. And so they went back and they had their plan and they were ready, and it seemed like they might not have enough, so Greg Dell was helping in that situation, and he said, well, if it's not the will of the group, we don't need to do this. You have to do a check once in a while. Maybe it's not the will of the group. What's the Spirit saying? He said, I hate to pick a number, but if we go in there and only 3 people are going to be arrested, that would not be enough. So he did pick a number. He said maybe 20. He said, I think we really need to have at least 20. Well, here's something, a mistake or a process I can learn from. It was starting to feel like we didn't have the will to do this. And when he said, who knows they're ready to do this? Like 25 hands went up. The people who were already settled and ready hadn't been the ones asking the questions. They were just kind of biding along their time, and we had plenty of people. So they finished their plan, and we were done, except he said, is there one more? The thing at Cleveland was a burning question. We don't want to stay any later. It's already 1 o'clock, and looks like we're ready to go. We're good. Anybody have a burning question? And somebody raised their hand. And I kind of can't believe I'm saying this to everybody, but it must be because I'm at Claremont, and I think highly of you calculus people. Somebody raised their hand, and their question was, I think it sounds fine, but I'm not sure. I want to know what Sue Laurie thinks. I'm too afraid to get arrested. I said, I'm just happy people are willing to do this. But you don't understand, so many of you, what you don't understand is when you go home from this in 2 days, you have a church to go to. Some of our best volunteers are from Reconciling Congregation, and we even had Reconciling conferences in those days. You'll go home and you'll go to church. I'll go home and there's no church. These things have happened to us. It's 4 more years till we get another chance. So I think your plan is great. I'm thankful to the people doing it. God bless. And then a little bit later, I had my car, because we live near Cleveland. Erie, Pennsylvania is real close to Cleveland. And so I was giving people rides when Greg Dell and Katherine Johnson came over and said, we want to ask you if you'll be the second spokesperson to the General Conference. And I thought, that thing you think when you finally learn a little bit about it, I would have 2 minutes. I would not have words to convey the experience of all the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people that I know in all the different annual conferences. If I only have 2 minutes, I'm thinking, what would I say? But while I hesitated and I was quiet, Katherine Johnson was great. She's like, don't be afraid. You can do it. You can do it. And I said, I'm actually not afraid of whether I can do it or not. And that's in your bulletin introduction of me. I had gone forward at annual conference already for 10 years. What I was thinking when this happened was, I was like, oh, this is part of the why I did that, so I could be ready for the next thing. So they asked if I would be the spokesperson. I said, no, it wasn't that. I think I could do it. I don't know what I would say in 2 minutes. And Catherine Johnson said, just say what you said here tonight. Just say what you said. And basically that's what I said. I called my friend Amy DeLong in the middle of the night. She had gone home. She had had a book out by then called Loyal Opposition, and she was signing it with the Bible verse, "You have treated the wounds of my people lightly, crying peace, peace, when there is no peace," from Jeremiah. And so that's what was different in my little speech. That's how I started it. And Randy Miller was the other spokesperson, and he asked in his minute for a moratorium on the effects and enforcement of the Book of Discipline. Because while people say, well, we need more dialogue or we need more time to talk about it, well, then put all the enforcement of the rules on hold. Put that on hold. And meanwhile, I'm here to tell you, calculus people, these things have all been done in 2000, which was 17 years ago. So now, when newcomers come up and say, here's an idea, let's try this, we need advocates that say, that's a great idea, not at this level. People have been working on it at this level for a long, long time. We are going to tell our stories. We are going to ask for the moratorium. What we really need now is the language of the Book of Discipline that needs to come out. The group, I wouldn't have a place to stand now and get into the things I get into now, but for a group called Love Prevails. I've had nowhere else to hang my hat. And Love Prevails is Amy DeLong and a bunch of Wisconsin people, and now they've gathered in a few more. And we, for the last quadrennium, have showed up at council of bishop meetings, judicial council, trials, all these places, and we learn things because we're in relationship with people in the hallways. So I don't say it lightly when I say these bishops know better. We talk to them, we look them in the eye. They say, well, I want you to know, one meeting was in Chicago about 3 years ago. You have more friends in the room than you realize. And I'm like, well, actually I know that a lot of people say they're on our side, and we make these little homemade signs. We're low budget people. We travel with poster board and markers. Friends don't delay. Friends speak and act for equality. What I thought I said, and I don't have it with me, is I guess I must have just said it to them. If they were my friends, I guess I would know who they are. How do we stop this whispering stuff? Stop this whispering stuff. Or we make a little sign like this, incompatible with Methodist teaching. So an ally, a good-hearted, nice ally, can feel really uncomfortable if I use strong language like hate. But people hate me when I go in these rooms. I can feel the hate. Not always, but sometimes I can feel the hate. But with some allies, if I say that to them, they can't manage it. And they still feel that they're allies, but now I have to, just like if you're in the closet or out of the closet, you keep that whole file cabinet of who am I out to, who am I into, who am I this, who am I have to keep track of all these allies who I can say how I really feel, or if I'm still just their teacher bringing them along. So, what didn't make it into the sermon this morning, shortly after Jesus says, I have called you friends, are those parts about hatefulness. I'm not thinking of it right now. If the world hates you, remember they hated me before they hated you. When you're gay or lesbian and you've been in this battle with the hateful United Methodist Church, those words jump up off the page. They just jump up off the page. So it just gets better and better. Scripture gets deeper and deeper. Julie and I helped teach a Gospel of John study this spring at the Park Ridge United Methodist Church. It's written by Adam Hamilton. Adam Hamilton drives me nuts. It doesn't mean that all of his curriculum is bad or anything like that. We were teaching Gospel of John. My problem with Adam Hamilton, quickly put, is Adam Hamilton's one of those allies that knows better and is role modeling mediocre treatment of gay people. And he thinks a local option would be okay. And the commission, it seems to have moved past that, so I'm thankful for that. A local option is that all the different local regions can decide for themselves. We know what happens with that. Western Pennsylvania is still horrible. And even in the good places, we have to be all torn through the grinder again while they decide. It's not right. Somebody wrote the phrase, oh gosh, I was trying to do this with Dwight yesterday, I can't remember the word. But theologically, it's incoherent. It's incoherent. A church body, once you know something's wrong, you need to stop it. Once you know something wrong, you need to stop it. So, a couple more things. It's easy to get into difficulties with people if you just go to their meetings. My main gift is just showing up and then seeing what happens. So, the Northern Illinois Conference, which thinks it's just so very liberal, they were having a meeting of clergy 2 years ago in September, and the Bishop Sally Dick, who's an ally, was going to help the clergy know how they can be in ministry with LGBT people and still not violate the Book of Discipline. And it just made me furious, because Sally Dick, I know for certain, knows better than that. I trust her to know better than that. And it role models that that's okay. She's like polluting my allies now. She's creating a whole group of allies that think, well, it's okay. So I thought, okay, well, I need to go to the meeting. It's in Chicago, Arlington Heights. So I went up to one thing nice at the Arlington Heights Church, our last two general conference themes from Reconciling are up on the wall. Open the doors. Why does God welcome? I love those themes, and they're on the wall. So I'm out there in my shorts and t-shirt and my signs. And one of my signs was equal rights include baptism and communion, which the Methodists are very good on, and also marriage, and also ordination. That's all we want. So it was just me, so that was sitting on the ground. I had this sign. I don't mean to pick on Sally Dick extra. She's just in my conference. I try not to point out the sin in other places. I don't like to blame it on the South. I want to talk about my people, Western Pennsylvania, Northern Illinois. These are our themes from Reconciling Ministries over the years. So I had these too. And we thought we were going to make progress. And I said in my sermon, at some point, we got stuck. And so I had that there also. But I had a little handout. And I had a bowl of water for Remember Your Baptism. So this was irritating. Everybody who came was clergy. So I don't know where my bag is, because that's where I have the paper. Anyways,
I think it's down there.
my handout,
No.
there's all kinds of clergy coming in and going out. I went to seminary with a whole bunch of them. Some of them just ignore me, some of them look at me, some of them thank me for being there. I remember your baptism. One of them came out, like, why am I there? I'm like, well, I'm just passing these out because I heard you're having a conference for clergy to talk about how to be in ministry with LGBT people, and there's no LGBT people here, and that's not right. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, if it's all clergy, and gay people can't be ordained, you're in there talking about LGBT people, and there's no one there. There's no one there. Well, so one of them, I think I know who, went in and said, 2 minutes later, Sally Dick was out, asking me to leave. And I like Sally, and I like that we can look at each other in the eyes. And I said, and we're about kind of the same height. And I said, Sally, you know I'm not going to go. She goes, well, remember your baptism, that's the first thing we're doing and the thing, and I'm trying to help, and I'm this and that. And I said, I just kept saying, I believe you. I believe you. I do believe you're trying to help. However, I have this handout, and I think we can do better, because it's not right to have that meeting amongst clergy and no gay people in there. This is the day the Lord has made, was on my sheet. I had a little rainbow paper. I said, so I wrote up some things of what we really can do. We, the oppressors, the majority, the privileged, that's the clergy, can treat people as equals. We can let go of our respect for the opinion of heterosexism. We can disobey the prejudices built into the law book. We can open the doors of the church. We can offer equal rights. We can be healed. We can trust God. We can celebrate. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So those things, those markers were, just go up to the line and don't say the words, are no good anymore. They're no good. One last one and I'll stop. Bishop Talbert has been terrific. He's doing those break the rules weddings. He's been a real thorn in the side to the Council of Bishops. When we go to the Council of Bishops meetings with Love Prevails, we're able to sit with him and his wife and be supportive of people. And I'm really, really grateful. But part of what happened in that was Bishop Talbert was meeting with Reconciling Clergy in Minneapolis months before Amy DeLong's trial. And Amy DeLong was going on trial for being lesbian and for doing a lesbian wedding. And she went to that meeting in Minneapolis, and Bishop Talbert was doing the same thing all these bishops do, of just don't say the words, how to get up to the line and don't cross it. And Amy said, I'm at this meeting to say I'm crossing the line. And he kept trying to educate her the way we've been educated from the 90s. And she said she'd been unappointable for 8 or 9 years by then. She wanted her due process. She said, I felt like I was yelling at him, and I didn't want to yell at Bishop Talbert. You know, he's not hard of hearing, it's not that, but he just wouldn't listen. And Amy DeLong, I don't think she convinced him that day, but to all of those clergy, she said, this line is no good. We're going to cross the line. And I don't know how all the dots connect from that conversation with Amy DeLong to the Tampa General Conference, where he was still hesitant. So by the end of the Tampa General Conference, they're talking about doing weddings. And in the last quadrennium, he was doing weddings. But I'm really thankful that he doesn't stop at the line anymore. And there's a lot more bishops like that. So I'm sorry I told you before I start telling stories, and there's just a million and a million. The stole was from the Estes Park Convocation. Lots of people who are here signed the stole. That's when I left Reconciling Ministries. So they gave me some gifts when, at that meeting in September, one of the real reasons I brought it up was one of the, they call microaggressions now. One of the microaggressions that I received from an ally was, it's your own fault you're not ordained. This is an ally, and this ally is too good to have made that up herself as a straight person. I thought, she's learned this from gay people in this Northern Illinois conference. It's my own fault I'm not ordained. You know, there's a whole lot of people in Northern Illinois conference. It's my own fault I'm not. And I didn't say anything, it was kind of a passing shot. But those moments do help you reflect. Like, what do you mean it's my own? Don't you know there's an oppression going on around here? But you know, a little while later, if you keep praying to be vulnerable, and you keep watching for clarity, it's like, oh my goodness, it is my own fault I'm not ordained. We need to have an ordination party at the Portland General Conference. And it's not going to be me ordaining myself. I'm so thick, I'm so dense. God's been ordaining me for so many years, I haven't even been paying attention. So thank goodness for this ally that went by and said, it's your own fault you're not ordained. Because I thought, they gave me this stole at Estes Park, and it's signed by a couple hundred people. I have these other stoles I didn't bring them all, but I did bring a flyer. This is one given to me in Western Pennsylvania the year I graduated from seminary, 1995, from two women, two elders who were being ordained, and they said, we just want you to be ready when the United Methodist Church is ready. So they had given me that stole. And I don't know if any of you saw the ordination a year ago at the General Conference, but I had 14 stoles in my closet. You know, it's kind of like, God's going, get them out of the closet. Let those children be free. And so we had an ordination celebration of an ordination that I'm claiming happened from the grassroots over the last many, many years.
Amen.
Well, thank you. And thanks for all of you. Thanks for that person that said it's my own fault. So I know it's already 1 o'clock. But
Have questions for either Julie or Sue?
Could we hear a few words from Julie? Hey, Julie.
yeah, Julie.
I married her when she was an algebra teacher. Neither of us can believe the call to activism. And one of the stories that I don't tell as well as Sue, I'm not a storyteller, but when we were at Amy DeLong's trial, when the bishop who was serving as the judge and the entourage arrived at this little podunk church in little small town Wisconsin, they were terrified of us activists. It was really, they were seriously terrified of us. They drove the car past and went in the back door of the church. And the activists, we're just all hanging out with all of our colorful stoles and banners, singing, for crying out loud. That's what we do. We sing. We show up and we sing. We're Methodists. That's right. But that's what we do. We show up, we sing. Sue's developed relationships all over the world. I'm really proud of what she's able to do, and I'm proud that it's been a shared journey.
Julie and I might say also, we're really, really fortunate that we're at the same place at the same time when we've needed to leave a church. You know, and a lot of couples, that's a hard thing when one's here. Well, for 2 years in Chicago, we went to a UCC church. It's been really, really hard for us in Chicago. And there was a UCC church in our neighborhood. We went there for a couple of years, and then we kind of take turns like, you know what, I don't think I can go here anymore. And it's really been a blessing. It's also been a blessing. I don't make any money. I work at Menards. I put light bulbs on the shelves early in the morning because that frees up my day. And part of our joint call is a 2-income family, or a 1 and a little bit of income family.
A 1-income family.
Yeah.
Tell us what you do, Julie.
I'm actually really lucky. My call pays. I'm a social worker by training, and I've worked in hospice and palliative care for over 25 years. The last 9 of that, I have been the director of education and learning for the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine. So I am the facilitator of physicians teaching other physicians how to be better. It's fabulous.
And you make money.
And I make money, and I also have benefits. And now that we have federal benefits, Sue has benefits. So, you know, the progress of the culture has really been so helpful to us because it is a financial burden when you can't cover each other. So, yes.
Julie, what is your position in your healthcare career? What is your position in regards to your sexuality in your professional career? Are you out amongst everybody? Or are you still balancing?
I am out. I work in an organization that has grown a lot since I've been there, and they've done a good job at following the law changes. But I also was out when I was hired. The last 3 positions that I've had, including one in rural Pennsylvania, I talked with the people who hired me and said, I'm an out lesbian, and if that's going to be a problem, you need to make that decision before I get in here. I will say that I still volunteer with hospice doing patient care. I limit my volunteering to just doing vigils and sitting with people who are very near death. And that is because it's very hard on me to develop relationships with people. And then they quiz me about my family. And I'm still, I don't know if it's my own homophobia, but I don't do that. That I keep that personal, and I just spend time with people who pretty much are not present here. They're on the journey. So.
I know I can't deal with this very well with the words I want to use, but we have a bishop who is also the bishop for the rest of the bishops. I think you know who I mean. Minneapolis.
The president of the
Oh,
council.
Bishop Bruce O?
Yes,
Bruce O.
yeah, and he is working with the bishops, which then mean it comes out to all of the rest of us as well. I haven't heard you say anything about how you're going after him. I think he's very good for what he's got. It's kind of like the one you described already before. They're good, they are on our side, but they also have other responsibilities, and they have to do that instead of going, you know. So, but you haven't said anything. That's what we'll be seeing and hearing about now. So I don't want a whole story on it, but I just wonder, are you working on that guy also?
Yes. Bruce O. is the president, I think it is, of the Council of Bishops, although that might have just
That's right,
passed
yes.
over.
No, it's
to a new
for
person.
4 years.
No, about 2.
But we're in a new quadrennium.
He's going around next.
He's still there.
Okay.
He was. This keeps on that.
With Love Prevails, when they, so in the 90s, with those general conferences, with all the education, with all the witnesses, the gap of the votes was narrowing. Okay, then we knew in Fort Worth, the arithmetic was going to change. We can't win a vote. It's impossible. We're not going to win a vote. So we have to find another way to make our message. And so we start thinking, you know, we could start asking for what we really want. And there got to be a break with folks who wanted to just keep pretending we could win the vote. I'm sorry, that's indelicately put, but I'm allergic to false hope. I think we're losing a lot of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people from the Methodist Church because of the harsh, oppressive treatment that we get. But a lot of people are willing to hang in there if we at least tell the truth. And when others start offering a false hope, when we start hearing people who are our friends whispering and not being a little more forthright, that's when they kind of give up and leave. They give up and leave because they don't want to yell at their own friends. These are my best friends in the church, and they're telling me to wait and be patient. Like, this really is hopeless, and I'm going to go. So anyway, the vote in Tampa in 2012 was wider than ever, 39% to 61%. So in the next quadrennium, Love Prevails, who's just a we just tried to stir it up the whole quadrennium. In my experience, in the last 25 years, in between general conferences, it just goes dormant. There's good people doing the Algebra 1, working really, really hard at that level, but a whole lot of the other stuff just goes dormant. And that's how I got up in front of the general conference in Cleveland. I said, you don't understand. I go home for 4 years. I don't have any place to go to church on Sunday. Where does a gay person go to church in this town, in their own town, this Sunday? Like, let's get some urgency. So that's when we started to go to all of these other meetings. And Bruce O., the first Council of Bishops meeting, connectional table, when we disrupted that, because they don't even say the words. At the same time, the high levels of the church say we're the cause of a split in the denomination. They also don't even say lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. They don't say the words. They're accusing us of all things divisive, and yet they talk about any agency, pick a topic, and I say, well, what were your conversations around LGBT candidates for ministry? Oh, that didn't come up. So we just go into whatever meeting we're at and bring up LGBT stuff, and it's not that hard. So Brousseau at the beginning of the last quadrennium was fairly open to that, said kind words and things like that, but we don't see any real help. And so then it went meeting after meeting, and then the last general conference, we were surprised as anyone when the council of bishops, there was just no vote at all. What happened at Tampa was after the bad vote and the shutdown of the Love Your Neighbor Coalition and Love Prevails and everybody, there was a shutdown, there was a negotiation, and they took a lot of things off the table that then were never voted on. One of the things not voted on was Amy DeLong survived her trial and is now appointed to a congregation, and they're doing great, and she loves it. It's a good match. Well, there was an issue at Tampa to say, if you're on trial, you're not allowed to bring in outside consults. And some other things, because Amy had won, they were trying to take away the pieces on how we prevailed. So that stuff was all knocked off the table. The abortion votes were knocked off the table. You know, different things, when all the sexuality, all that stuff was knocked off the table and not voted on in Tampa. The right wing was really unhappy. They said that was an $8 million meeting where we did nothing and wasted a lot of money. And so at Portland, they didn't want that to happen again. And there were a lot of people on both sides that feel like it just got knocked off the table. And we don't know what this way forward is going to do. I'm happy that they're saying the local option is dead, because I think that's theologically incoherent. But what Love Prevails wrote to that commission and to the bishops is, well, before the commission was named, we wrote a letter that said half of the commission needs to be LGBTQ people. Half. There's going to be 32 people, half LGBTQ. Secondly, you have to say the words. Don't shift the message. This is about the inclusion of LGBTQ people in the full life of the church. Say the words. We just keep saying that over and over. Say the words. Say the words. And then the third thing is the incompatibility language and all of that discriminatory stuff needs to come out of the Book of Discipline. That is the compromise. If you get it out of there, now we don't have to attack each other. Now this side doesn't get to keep attacking the ministries of this side. Take it out. If some people still believe they're called to be mean to gay people, there's no law in there against it. But if we're called to be in ministry with gay people, there's no law about that either. When we were at the Council of Bishops meeting last November, after General Conference, we took our letter, we wanted a response, they didn't want to respond, mostly ignored us, so we wouldn't leave the meeting. So a lot of people don't know this, it's not a secret. When we wouldn't leave the meeting, at the appropriate time, we didn't disrupt anything else, at the appropriate time we said, no, you're going to talk about the commission. We want to hear about our letter. Say the words, lesbian, gay, bisexual. Half the people need to be LGBTQ, and take the words out. We want to be in here for this part. Well, Brousseau came and talked to us, and just like with Sally, and now we've done this a little while, it's like, yeah, we're not leaving. We're not leaving. Well, what he negotiated was, what if I get the bishops on the commission, which it's bishop heavy. It's like half the commission is bishops. What if I get them all for a half-hour meeting with you after dinner? Which was really nice. We met with Amy DeLong, myself, Julie Todd, and 3 or 4 other people. And then we always are ready with the next ask. So Amy said, oh, well, we were really surprised actually, but she said, well, we want to invite a few bishops of our choice. So we got a few in there too. 2 new ones, Cynthia Moore Koikoi from Western Pennsylvania, Latrell Easterling from New England, serving somewhere else. So and Minerva Carcano. We invited them. So we had all these bishops in a room and us. And we had 30 minutes, and we said we would like to know the response to our letter. And one of the things that came up, as I saw you react about getting half of the commission to be LGBT, one of the things that come up was, well, what we noticed was no one would talk except Bruce. There was a whole henpecking order like I've never seen in my life. Nobody would talk. I was stunned. We had decided we would just say to them first, you know, like, what are your questions? We're not going to tell stories. What do you want to know? And so we did that, and they wouldn't talk. And then Bruce said something, and then we just waited. And then Rosemary Benner spoke second. Well, she used to be the president. And all of a sudden I realized they're not allowed to talk. This is so weird. So we waited a little while longer. But what Rosemary said was, you have to understand, to get half LGBTQ, when we're trying to get all the other diversity of people from the Philippines and the jurisdictions and the ages and the different theologies and all this thing. So all of that is to say, we got to say to them, La Prevail said to this group of bishops, we're fine with all of that. We're fine if your gay man is from Zimbabwe and your lesbian is from the Philippines, and your transgender person is from Germany, and your lesbian is from the Southeast, and your clergy people are gay, and your lay people are gay. This is God's diversity that's in every geographic region. We're fine with that. Now, no one else knows that, but we feel better that we at least deliver that message to them. And then the place where the conversation broke and had some Holy Spirit was there were two bishops there from Africa, and they got mad at us, and they broke the covenant of silence. I was so thankful for that. They kind of hollered at us at first, but that's okay, because it was authentic, and they meant it in a good way. They meant it. They said, we don't like how you are disrespecting the bishop, and we don't, because Amy and I call all the bishops by their first names on purpose. We have a hardcore policy about that. Julie Todd disagrees. She thinks we need to remind them of their office every time. But we were disrespectful to the bishop, and they could tell by our attitude also. But they also said, and why don't you respect the process? Which was so helpful, because then we told them. We've had 40 years of study. We've had this and this and this. So Love Prevails did get a chance with that group with Bruce O. I can't think of a way to trust the process. It's starting to feel like another quadrillion of nothing going on. Bruce. My question for Bruce and all of Sally, all the bishops, no matter how much I like them or dislike them, is, are you really going to sit by and watch our church dissolve in this? So, yeah.
Can I ask something really quick? That is so great. And I want to thank you for coming. I feel like I joined this church because of the great reconciling openness, and it wasn't even a concern. It was like, everybody's here. Love was expressed. It is performed here. And I think that to those who have much is given, much is required. And I'm sitting here now, not a very long Methodist, so I hesitate to talk, but maybe you can just throw me out the door after this.
Bring us no Baptist fervor.
But the idea of hearing about what just occurred and then getting feedback on translation of what happened in the council a few weeks ago basically sounded like going backwards into complacency and stagnation to me. And it disturbed my heart to think that there's so much amazing work that's been done by so many people around me and people I've never met and the world. Things are going on, and I'm just so moved to continue on that path and not be someone who's just waiting to see what happens next. And what I understand the last few years, I've been trying to see the movement, and I came in when the movement was going, and then it started. But the language that I've heard lately in talking about what the church is deciding tells me this is now an institution. This is institutional causes. I work with human services. I work in places, we've been blowing up institutions for 30 years. That's my job, my day job. Work with developmentally disabled adults who've been tortured and experimented on and, just like over the years. Because we've changed the language of how we speak in a people-first language, hearts and minds become changed because we're constantly using language to change our thoughts and our actions. What I hear from the leaders, first of all, everybody here? Yay! Don't slash my
That's a lot of people.
But the interpretations of stuff coming from what is supposed to be the Methodist Church that I have a membership card for is hurtful and destructive and is so disturbing to me right now that I feel like I have to tear up the card and get to work. I can't do it within. I've come from a series of church situations where the infighting takes over the good work that Christ has called us to do. And I have no more patience for the infighting. And I don't know what to do. And I want to know what we need to do. Or do I go away? I don't know. That's my question at this point for all of us. And I think of you as a flame that has just landed on us. And, I love that Methodist logo. That flame. I'm sorry I had to express myself, but that's what I'm looking for. And I'm wondering, does anybody else feel that? Because I don't know what our next steps are, what my next steps are.
Yes, indeed, and we're just muddling through, all of us. We're muddling through. You talked about Pentecost and those flames that are on the head. I think the flames are on our head, but I think we're very much like those first disciples who looked out at that whole impossible situation in the first century and said, and pardon my French, what the hell do we do now? But the Spirit was doing something, and we just muddle and try to be open, try to speak the truth, try to be coherent, try to have some theological grounding about the good news that we've found and grace,
Where do we
and
speak
try to
everything that's wrong language?
find ways we can be effective. But I don't know what they
How
are.
does this church, I'm thinking like this church should break away. These people are saying things that are harmful and hurtful. If I was outside of, the world is moving forward in front of us. The world is looking at us as a model? Sorry.
Well, it's a complicated process for an individual because I'm sure you feel the same way. It was very hard for me to come back to this church, having left the church as an in-closet ordained United Methodist minister. And I said I would never come back to this church. But the older you get, the more you go back to your roots. You do. The more older you get, the more you go back to your roots. And my posture right now is to the larger church, how dare you? This is my church here, too. I belong right here. I will resist. And, there are all kinds of things that we'll be discussing in our committee meetings about ways we can make it more difficult for the administration of this church. And that's a whole totally different thing. Jean Audrey had it right today. She talked to me after church, and she said, what's so hurtful to me is I spent so much of my time in the hierarchy of this church on committees and things and trying to change everything. And now that's what's gone sour. That's what's gone sour. This church hasn't gone sour. Other open and reconciling churches have not gone sour. And there will be more of them. Because either the church accepts us or the United Methodist Church will die. We bring truth to the church.
And I have to say, I struggle with the same things, Rebecca. And my answer finally comes down to, how can I leave when Sue and Julie stay and work? All I can do is work as hard as I know how to make us do the right thing.
It's a particular call. If some people need to leave, I help them to do that. But the stories I told you today of Anna and Will and Karen and
Amy,
they're people who are staying also. And in Love Prevails, we've been calling for 3 things, and I can leave a few papers, but the one is disclose. Like, no more secrets, no more. And so if you can help this annual conference, stop with that. So when you're running into the allies who are saying, well, if they just don't say this, they can still get ordained. Anna and Will and Em, they're not agreeing to that line anymore, and allies can help with that. Allies can help that to happen. I think we're in a new place with transparency. David Meredith is my generation in West Ohio, and he's starting to be very transparent. And I think he's learned from Anna. He's the generation before, but I watched him speak in March. There's charges against him for being gay and for being married, and he's contemporary with Karen Oliveto and myself. And I heard him saying transparent. What I mean by that is they name their oppressors. And they put it right out there. He said on the video that day that while Greg Palmer, that bishop, had dismissed the other charges against the other out clergy on the list of a year ago, they're still coming after David. And he doesn't exactly know why, but he also thinks the bishop's been told by some on the others. There are sides. To hear Karen Oliveto say there are sides is new ground. And David said, the other side has said, if you make this disappear, we're coming after you. So if that's what happens, that's some clarity. But and so it's the transparency. I think Amy DeLong had a lot to do with that, and it's spreading. And then the younger folks were having trouble learning all this code language anyway. Like, they were already ready for it, so they have already taken it to new levels. And then the divesting, the part about how much do we still pour our life into the institution of the Methodist Church, or decide how we do it with local congregation. Julie and I did leave for a while, went to UCC, but we were missing some things. However, it did give us a break, and it did allow us to come back. But finding ways, and then disrupting. We disrupt meetings, and I disrupt people in ways that are more noticeable. But you can disrupt a meeting just by shaking your head. You don't have to be the one that turned over the tables. You don't have to be Jesus. But I've had things stop sometimes because I'm just shaking my head and stopping the flow of the conversation. And if that's all you can do, that counts as a disruption. Like, don't let it go along on its usual course. Have you had gay clergy here serving this church?
Yes.
Do you put that in your profile? Is there a way to make that transparent and not protect the bishop? Just make everything transparent. That's massive. The Western jurisdiction is under siege with the rest of the church, and that's something that's a good thing.
Yep.
So,
Sue, would you give us a blessing and a sending for?
yeah, I will do the one that I did already, and so watch out. So just be careful here. You are a letter of Christ. You, in your Bible, it has your name. You are a letter of Christ. You can disrupt or just shake your head or do more, but don't let the status quo go along as it is. You are a letter of Christ, written not with, sorry, I'm just so wound up. Not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, written not on tablets of stone. You know, good Bible study builds up your confidence. Good Bible study builds up your confidence.
And we're going to stand up if we're able, and we're going to sing. We're going to sing for our lives.
Gentle, angry people, singing for our lives. We are gentle, angry people, and we're singing for our lives. We are just a singing people.
up. Amen.